Hello. If it's Tuesday, you know it's time for comic book school. And I'm just going to jump right into the intro. And here we are. We are back on Tuesday with Comic Book School, and we have a very special guest, Mr. Kevin Shinick. I'm just going to bring him right on. Hiya,
Hey,
Kev.
there I am.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
Good, good. How'd you like that intro?
That was amazing. I got to say, that really was. I was like, wow, who did all this? And then at the end, you explained who did it.
Yes, yes. So Kevin and I have been friends for, geez, I don't even know how long.
You know what's crazy? This thing the other day, it always seems like yesterday we met, but we've been decades, it seems.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
15 years, I think.
And Kevin is doing a new comic. So I wanted to bring him on.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can bring up these graphics here.
Wrapped and everything.
That's not it. There we go. I should get you on with them. There we go. That's the button.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's jump right in. So Kev, let's find out a little bit about Kevin.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is comic book school, so I think I'll start with the comic books. But I've been very lucky. You and I met on Robot Chicken.
Yep.
And it was on that show. Say again.
I got a slide for that. Look, I put a picture.
Look at that. There it is. Look, there we are. There we are on the lower bottom. Look at those youngins.
I know. Yeah. Good times.
So it's funny is my career has come in from all different angles, and it's converged in the comic book world. Years and years ago, 10 years before Julie Taymor did her version of Spider-Man, I was approached to do the first ever theatrical version at Radio City Music Hall. So I did that. And then
that wasn't the one where they kept having injuries, was it?
No, less people died on mine. So I have that to cling to. And then, when I was on Robot Chicken, I started, someone approached from DC Comics and said, we'd love a Batman sketch. We'd love you to write a Batman comic. And I was like, don't joke. Exactly. And so then I went off and created the animated series Mad. And then when I went to Comic-Con, someone from Marvel came to me and said, oh, my family loves Mad. And I was like, I love Spider-Man. And he's like, come write some comics for us. I was like, you can't just throw that out there. So I wrote another Spider-Man comic. So now I've written for Batman, for Spider-Man, for the Guardians of the Galaxy, for Flash, Axis Hobgoblin, Superior Carnage, all sorts of things that I have had a great time doing that.
Nice. So you've been doing a little bit of writing here and there.
Absolutely. This. Look, I'll say right now, I think the word pivot comes to mind. You know what I mean? This business keeps contracting and expanding and changing and all sorts of stuff. And as long as you keep doing what you do, what you like doing, it doesn't feel like work is what they say. And there's some truth to that. But it also helps that when certain areas run dry, then you can shift to there. So as a result, through no credit of my own, I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I'm a voiceover artist, I'm a producer, I'm a TV host. I'm sure there's a bunch of things more that I'm a best-selling author, having written a Star Wars novel. I'm all sorts of things. But yeah, you have to pivot and do what's available to you at the time.
Yeah. So what's it like writing comics? Like for Flash and Spider-Man, was that brand new to you? Like you'd never done anything like that
You
before?
know what was great was writing for comics. What I love about it is the most, I'd say, intimate and personal medium, because TV shows, even theater, even movies, it's a lot of people, a lot of cooks. And yet when you're writing a comic book, it really is you and your artist. And then when they're ready, we bring in the colorist and then the letterer. So it's a smaller group of people that are coming together to create this story. Yeah, I mean, I got to work with some really great people. You know, this Batman was my first Batman. I contributed a 10-page story about Mr. Freeze, which I enjoyed doing. And Rafa Gara was my artist, and I loved his stuff. I still own it on the wall.
Ooh.
That's another funny thing that's changed is every time I do a comic, I try and buy a page or two from my artist as kind of a memento. And unless you specify now, that's becoming a dying art because everybody uses the tablet.
Yep.
There's no real paper that they're writing on. So back then I had the privilege of being able to buy these things. Now you kind of have to point it out and say like, hey, could you draw one or two in paper so I can buy it from you?
Just pull out a pencil and do a little sketch for me.
Exactly. I mean, they still do commissions. They still at Comic Cons, draw for you. But to get an actual page from a comic is becoming a dying art, I'm finding.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you did, so you've done Spider-Man, Batman, Flash,
Guardians of the Galaxy. I did during the Superior. I did Superior Spider-Man team up. I did Superior Carnage. I did Axis Hobgoblin, where we turned Hobgoblin into a good guy for a time being.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, a bunch of things like that. But so I've done a lot of in the industry, a lot of Marvel, a lot of DC. But lately, as I said, you try and pivot and you go with what is. But I thought to myself, I've been spending a lot of time working at other people's IP. And so I thought I should, if I'm going to spend my time on this, because if you write, it's no easy task. You just knock these things out in a day. So I thought if I'm going to spend a lot of time on something, I really want to be something my own. Of course, I'm like, well, what do I have to offer the universe? And now I know you know this, but your listeners may not know. I started my career as the host and squad leader of a TV show called Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego.
And how long ago was that, Kev?
Oh my God, that was 96, 97. That was a long time ago. And that show was a sequel or a follow-up to a show called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, which was all about geography. They realized after a while that kids knew enough about geography. Now they realize they knew nothing about history. So they buy in. Instead of being a classic gumshoe detective like Greg was, I was a time-traveling detective. So I had never met Greg, even though we shared the title of the same show, Carmen Sandiego. Again, his was different than mine. His had Rockapella. Everybody remembers them. I had the engine crew, the hip hop engine crew, which was a lot of fun. So I met Greg only about like 5 years ago at a friend's, it may be more than that, but it was like 5-6 years ago at a friend's film festival. They had done a film that they were premiering. So I met him. It was the first time. And it was like 20, 25 years after we had our shows. And we hit it off, and that was it. We said we'd stay in touch, and we didn't. Yeah. Again, getting back to the comic book world, I thought, what can I contribute? So I thought about what we were, and there were a lot of, for some reason, the 90s, a lot of game show hosts were detective themed, whether it was Carmen Sandiego, Blue's Clues, Figure It Out. In the 90s, there's a lot of fake fedoras and magnifying glasses trying to find the answers of things. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if those fake detective game show hosts had to solve a series of real murders? How ridiculous would that be? And so I thought, here I have me, who I played myself, but as Kevin Shinick as the time traveling detective, and Greg played himself, Greg Lee, as the gumshoe detective. So I thought I can take us and put us into that world. So I came up with a graphic novel that I'm calling Host Mortem, which is about, there it is right there, yeah, which is about, like I said, fake detective game show hosts from the 90s who have to solve a series of real murders in the 1940s, which means, of course, there is time travel involved and a whole bunch of other things. But what I really love about it is it's all the things that I love. We talked about writing what you love and doing what you love. I'm creating this book from scratch, but it involves game shows, it involves history, it involves time travel, it involves the 1940s, it involves movies, film noir, all the things that I love. And if you love, I think this is a great book for you. And of course, I say that because we're going to be on Kickstarter soon, in about a month's time. And if there's anything I rattle off there that you like, I guarantee you're going to enjoy this book.
Oh, well, you know me, I'm a big time travel buff.
I know. You and I both. We've talked about this a lot of times. We've gone to a lot of movies together that are time travel.
Yes, we have. Yes,
we still refer to you as Mike number 3.
I took some clips from your.
You did. Look at that. So I've got an amazing artist named Damian Torres, and he's a really fantastic guy, as you can see from these drawings. And Pippa Bolin did the wonderful coloring. And so I was looking for a very specific style for this. I wanted to be noirish. I wanted to be, something that could be relatable, but also jump off the page. And when I came across Damien, I was like, this is amazing. So I enlisted him quickly, making sure that no one else got him. And as you're seeing here, a lot of great stuff.
Now, how did you come up with the story? Was it just like, oh, this is a good idea, I want to do time traveling detectives, or?
To be honest, because that's what I'm here for, Mike, to be completely honest with you.
Completely honest.
I had written a 1940s, I had written a pilot, which was kind of like the creation of a superhero back in the 1940s. And when I say superhero, I don't mean like Superman. I mean like the Shadow or the Green Hornet or even Batman, like the Dark Knight years, or not the Dark Knight years, the Year One. Where he doesn't even know what he's doing yet. So I wrote this and I was going out with it. Everybody loved it, but they were like, but it's period, so we're not going to do it, which is a ridiculous thing to say because everything I watch is period, but they keep claiming no one's doing period.
No one's doing it.
No one's doing period, but everything I watch is period. So I sat on that, and then someone said, you should do it as a graphic novel. And then I thought, you know what? I appreciate that, but I don't think it breaks through the noise enough. There are plenty of noir graphic novels, a lot of them great, you know what I mean, that I've really enjoyed reading. But so I said, what can I do to break through that noise? And that's when I thought, well, hang on a second. I was actually a detective myself, even though I was a fake one. Greg was a detective, even though he was a fake one. But we played ourselves as detectives. And because my show was all about time travel, I thought, not borrowing from their show, but because I love time travel, I just come up with this crazy idea that at Comic-Con in that back alley behind Artist Alley, we found a time portal.
Where else are you going to find one?
Where else are you going to find it? They don't let you back there for a reason, So yeah, it takes us back to 1947, and it involves a murder surrounding the creation of the film The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart. So it dawned on me that the question in this book is, are hosts really smart, or do they just have the answers? And I thought what's funny about this premise for me is I have a lot of answers from these shows, but I also know a lot because I'm a history buff. So I thought to myself, am I really smart, or do I just have the knowledge that came after these events to study? So if I went back to 1947, I'm a little smarter than those people because I know the outcome of certain things that haven't happened yet. So that's why I thought, oh, this could be a fun take on what really makes us smart. It's just the fact that we have the leg up because we're from the future.
Now, this isn't based on any like real murder in Hollywood or anything.
No, I kind of fudge it there and make it. Look, if you want to talk about being an alternate universe, it's very possible. I stick close to some facts. So there's a lot of history in this graphic novel as well that you could be like, oh, I didn't know about that. But yes, I do play around a little bit with people. I change some names so that no one is getting murdered who stayed alive. And
no, Humphrey Bogart's not getting murdered.
Humphrey Bogart's not getting murdered. And more importantly, I'm not getting sued. That's these are all original characters. Because it takes place in the 40s, I pull in a lot of current events from that time, but we're not infringing upon anybody's identity or making anybody in trouble for doing anything.
Good, good. Now, did you pitch this around to anyone before you decided to do a Kickstarter?
No, I did not. I don't know why I did not. You know what? Because I had some other ideas that I pitched around. And like everything else, it's difficult out there. And, you hear people are not buying or they are buying, but not your stuff and yada, yada.
Yeah.
I thought the other thing, I so fell in love with the idea of Host Mortem that I thought I don't want to compromise and give up the rights to it just yet. Because when I came up with that title, it opened up a door in my mind, and I saw it as a graphic novel. I saw it as a series of novels of just, me, that I can do a first person, almost a prequel to this graphic novel that's just me. Then I had this great idea, which is actually going to happen. At first I thought, all right, well, how would I promote this graphic novel? Well, I guess I can go to Comic-Con. What would you do there? Well, I guess I would get a panel. Who would I invite? Well, I guess I know a lot of hosts. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me, this is the makings of a really great improv detective themed game show. Kind of like, Wait, Don't Tell Me, or, all those shows that are now podcasts on the radio or NPR or wherever you find your favorite game shows that you listen to. So I am now recruiting a lot of my host friends to come together and start what I'm hoping will be a performance once a month, maybe start in the fall, where it is just that. It's Host Mortem. And the question is, I pull in people from, game show hosts, TV hosts, radio hosts, podcast hosts, and we all compete to figure out, are we smart or do we just have the answers? And it's kind of like we compete against an audience member or the audience as a whole to find out who has the best detective skills. And so that's going to launch soon. And it's all kind of it's all dovetailing nicely into a, I don't know what it's dovetailing into, but I'm happy and I'm loving seeing this come to fruition.
Nice. Yes. Well, I'm very excited about seeing this because,
if I can get you out of the house, then that's a win.
Yeah, that is the one big thing. Yes.
I know. You
know me.
I do know.
As soon as I'm in the house, I'm staying there.
But yeah, so Mark Summers from Nickelodeon, Donovan Patton from Blue's Clues, all these people that I know, and I know a lot of people who are contemporary hosts, or without giving away all the cast or the people who will contribute, it's going to be a fun panel show. The way Match Game was, or Hollywood Squares was, or things like that. However, none of this will probably happen if we don't hit our mark on the Kickstarter. So I'm going to push for that, because that's the graphic novel, and that's going to be the thing that gets the ball rolling for all of this. And like I said, I spent a lot of time on this graphic novel. Damien has spent a lot of time. Everybody who's involved has done it. So I really, I'm going to make it, but I could use people's help.
Yes. Well, we're going to definitely get to the Kickstarter, but I have a comment here from one of our viewers.
Oh, fantastic.
From Glenn. What happened to Mike number 1 and 2? Now that's a long story, Glenn. That was a long...
Mike, what was the name of the movie? It was a foreign movie.
It was a Spanish movie. It was a Time Crimes.
Time Crimes. Oh, good memory. And it was so funny because in it, not giving anything away because I can barely remember the movie, but because it was a time loop, the first guy went missing, and then a different person showed up as number 2, then number 3. So after the movie, we were like, how do we know we're not watching this with Mike number 3?
That's right.
That's right. So we always joke, actually. What?
One of the mics, I think was I Mike 3? Or yeah, I think I was Mike 3. Mike 1 stayed home in tuxedo with his parents.
That's right.
Mike 2 went missing somehow in the whole time stream, and Mike 3 was me, the one that ended up coming out here to California.
But I do love the fact that we lost Mike 2 somewhere along the way.
There are no better. No, there are none. There are no.
We got the winner. We got the winner. Way to go!
Well, I am jealous of the one that stayed home with his parents. That was.
I know you are, and yet I'm proud of 3 for coming out here and making his mark.
So let's get into the Kickstarter. How did that all come about? Like, what's the process for that?
It's a whole ball of wax, but it's a great thing to have for creators. It has gotten a little big. You know what I mean?
A lot big.
It's kind of like, how when Sundance started, any Joe Schmo like you and I could make an independent film like Kevin Smith or Ed Burns, and they go in there and they get discovered, and then Hollywood swept in, and now it's all about opening weekends and things like that. Kickstarter is a great resource for creators, but it is getting a little, you can get lost in the shuffle with all the big people who are doing stuff, which is why it really is all about getting out there, getting noticed. I have complete faith in Host Mortem, but what I need help with is getting it in front of the people who I know will enjoy it. And so that's why I'm, you do it again, you use social media, you put it on Kickstarter. Kickstarter in a way now, especially for comic books, since this is comic book school, I was told, and I believe this now, that people go to Kickstarter, comic book lovers go to Kickstarter on Mondays the way, I want to say real people, the way in real life we go to comic book shops on Wednesdays. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I started doing that. And now I'm one of those people who not only goes to shops on Wednesdays, but also goes to Kickstarter on Mondays to see what I can back.
Nice. And how did you start the process? Is it just going, hey, I got this idea? Do you have to have
it literally one foot in front of the other? I had no, and there's so much conflicting information about Kickstarter out there. Like, to be honest, I was saying like, all right, well, I don't have the money to do a $60,000 graphic novel, so I'll raise money on Kickstarter. Then you hear, oh, no, you have to have the book done before you even get on Kickstarter. I was like, oh, but that defeats the whole.
Yeah, that was the purpose of Kickstarter.
So I was like, all right, I took that with a grain of salt, and I did, enlisted my artist, my colorist, my letterer, and I started the process. But my hope is that funds will come in to help me complete it, because Kickstarter usually is people helping you cross the finish line. You have to be willing to put something out. If you have something, look, if you have nothing, then I understand. You try and raise anything you can. I'm putting as much as I can of my own money into this, but since these things do cost at least $60,000 if you want a legitimate, nice book, and then you have to distribute it, all that stuff. So that's why I went to Kickstarter to say, hey, maybe there's a community that can help me get this over. And what's great about this, though, and this is what I was very excited by, is our rewards section. So people have rewards. Like we talked earlier, you can, back at a certain level and you get a piece of artwork from the comic and stuff. But I started thinking, what do I have to offer? Again, why am I doing this comic? Because I think I have something to say that others, that's unique to me. Again, I was a game show host who played a fake detective. Now I'm solving real crimes. That's unique to me and Greg. So I thought, let's try and do a book about it. But then I thought, what else do I have that's unique? So as we started the conversation, I'm a voiceover artist. I'm a writer. I'm a director. So I'm offering for certain tiers, I will do voiceover for your project. If you back a certain thing, I will. You can do a Zoom with Greg and I to learn things about, the shows that we've been on or advice about if you're looking to host. There are things where I'll have dinner with you and we can discuss your hopes and dreams and see what connections I have to help you out. Because I really think it is a community, and I'm not just joking about that. I think that's what keeps Kickstarter so alive and vibrant, is the fact that it is creators coming together. And when I say creators, I mean artists. If you write, if you draw, if you just like reading comics, if you have any connection to being creative, even as an audience member, you get to come together and find a home at Kickstarter. And that's what I'm hoping people will come and find Host Mortem and find a tier that they like.
Yes. Well, I have the link in the description below.
Great.
I should have put it up so people could have just copied it. But I'm new at finding the buttons.
There's a link there. It has not launched yet, but there's no stopping you from signing up to be alerted to when it launches.
Yes. When is the big launch date?
Beginning of August. We haven't nailed down the actual date yet because we're trying to coerce this and figure out the strengths and weaknesses of our campaign. But it will be like the first week or two of August. But if you go to Kickstarter now through that link, you can sign up for alerts and early bird specials and things like that. If you don't have the link for some reason, I'm sure if you go to Kickstarter and look up Host Mortem, something will come up. I hope something. If something doesn't come up, I'm in trouble.
You did something wrong.
Someone's not doing their job.
I'm looking forward to these rewards. I want that dinner with Kevin Shinick.
I know. What else is on there? It's like, Damien and I will sit with you and critique or give notes on your comic book. Damien has some beautiful artwork that he's going to give away at a certain level and a certain tier. Greg and I, like I said, you know what? Greg and I will do Zooms. We'll do video calls for you. You can talk to us. One of the stretch goals, if you know anything about stretch goals, it's like once you hit your goal, that's that. But there are certain more like incentives to keep on going. And one of the big ones is I thought it would be fun if I gathered all my celebrity voiceover friends and we actually recorded Host Mortem so that you can, it's almost like a read along, like a radio play that you can read along while you're turning the pages.
Nice.
So Greg is on, I'm on. And like I said, we got a bunch of my celebrity voiceover friends who said, yeah, this would be great. So
that's some cool stuff, Kev. Usually it's just like they give you a button or something.
I'll give you a button. You want a button? I'll find a button for you. But there's, and I don't have it here, but there is some, I did a couple of different covers. Timothy Anderson, you may know him from, if you Google Blade Runner pulp cover, Timothy did this great thing where he would take certain things that he liked and give them the pulp treatment. And he did this beautiful noir cover for pulp, Blade Runner. So I reached out to him and said, hey, I love this. Would you do a cover for Host Mortem? And he was like, totally. So I've got that gorgeous piece that's there. I mentioned earlier I did a novel for Star Wars called Star Wars Force Collector back in 2019. And my artist for that cover was a gentleman named Tony Foti. There it is. Tony did an amazing job on the Star Wars cover. So I went to him and said, hey, can you do a cover for Host Mortem? He said yes. Then I found this incredible artist. I don't even want to compare him to because he's incredible on his own right. But he has a very Edward Gorey style, if you know that look. And he created this intricate, beautiful, it's a piece of art, like lobby card for Host Mortem. So all of those are being offered as covers or slip covers or lobby cards. So there's that for the tiers. There's signed memorabilia from Greg and I. I've got a bunch of robot chicken things in there. I have what's called the Kevin collection, where there's a whole, most of the things that I've written, I will be happy to send them your way. There's the Carmen collection, which I'm parting with my own personal collection of Carmen memorabilia that I've had over the years. So like I said, I try to get really creative with the incentives and hopefully people will be happy.
Yeah, if you needed someone to draw a cover, Kev, I would have been happy to do it for you.
I wasn't even thinking, Mike. Oh, what a missed opportunity.
They'd think it was like your 3-year-old nephew who'd done it in crayon.
Well, I'll come to you on the next one. I'll definitely come to you on the next one.
Yes, that would be great.
So the cover we have there in that picture that you're looking at is the Tony Foti, the Tony Foti cover. Which is the main cover of the book. Like I said, he did an amazing job. He's done a lot of drawings for Lucasfilm, a lot of the Star Wars novels. He's done a lot of video game stuff. So he's a real pro and a great guy. So I'm happy to have him on board as well.
Now, how many? What's the dollar amount you're looking for this?
Well, I think we're shooting. Again, it keeps fluctuating because Kickstarter. Full disclosure, you need the money, you want the money, but then you're afraid you're not going to get the money, which means you can't keep any of the money. So I'm trying to be realistic. We were going in the book, we go back to the year 1947. So I was thinking $19,470, by the time we launch, I may be asking for, $1. I don't know how it goes. It's all about, do we think we have enough people who are interested in this? So yeah, somewhere between 10 grand and 20 grand is where we're going to be asking for.
Okay. And how many
going on? And like I said, there are all those stretch goals. If it keeps continuing on, we'll come out with the best of them and come up with all sorts of great stuff.
And how many pages is it?
Well, it's going to be upwards of 180. It's at least 180 and then, but not over 200. It'll be somewhere between the 180 and 200 range.
Oh, so it's a big, thick one.
It's a big, thick one. You get a lot for your money, Mike. It's a lot of story, a lot of great art, and a lot of fun. And
how long did it take you to write the whole thing?
Good golly. I'd say at least a year, which, depending on you look at it, may be quick considering it's over 180 page graphic novel. But even though the germ of the idea was in that original pilot that I had to change a lot of it to make it Greg and I and make it more relevant. I couldn't just lift it from what I had.
Yeah.
But I took the gems that I thought were worthy and moved them over here. But creating comics, Mike, as it's like I always think of it as a puzzle. And when I talk to people about who want to create comics, I'm sure you've had people on here who have talked about how they approach it, but I really do approach it like a puzzle in the sense that most comics are like 20, 22 pages. Yep. You've got 20 to 22 pages to convey something that's very interesting to someone that's going to want to keep reading it. You've got a maximum of 7 panels a page, right? You always want to see if you can end on a cliffhanger to get someone to turn the page, not the story. I'm talking about a page turner. You want to give your artist a reason to be happy he or she did this book. So there's a lot of parameters that I use and boxes that I check to get my comics done. And it's always worked for me. So I put that to work for Host Mortem as well.
And did you talk to anybody about it, or did you just sit in a room by yourself and go, this is exactly what I want, and I'm doing it like this?
Pretty much that. No, I was going to say the story, I was just myself, but in terms of doing a Kickstarter, I've talked to anybody who would sit with me. And that's what I mean by there's all sorts of conflicting stories and what you do. And I've talked to Kickstarter, I've talked to this person, that person, all sorts of stuff. It is a minefield of information, but at the end of the day, it's all bells and whistles. You've got to sit in front of you and write what you want to do. I did share it with my artist. We did collaborate in that regard. He never once said what are you doing? Or what is this? I refuse to draw this. So I figured I was on the right path. But yeah, this is right from my mind. So if you like it, I'm to credit. And if you hate it, I'm to blame.
No, you should blame somebody else.
Well, I'll blame you, Mike. That's what I'll say.
You can blame me. That's right. So you tapped into me for some knowledge, and I just
exactly
terrible.
Dropped it in the end zone. Oh man.
I should have never got in touch with him.
Never done that. No. But what's great about it too is it definitely is a collaborative process. Even if you're working in your silo as a writer and then you pass it on to the artist and then go to the colorist and then the letterer, even if you're in your own silos, you come together. I don't know how much you've talked about it on your show here, but Robot Chicken is like that. Where people say to me oh, Robot Chicken, you must have so much fun. And I say, eventually.
Yes. Eventually.
But out of a 5-week cycle, the first, 2.5 to 3 are 6 guys and women silently sitting at their desks, paranoid and terrified they're not going to hit their quota. It's quiet. It's scary. It's empty. And then once you get your stuff in and the script is done at the end and we all work to punch it up, that's where the fun begins. But it is very different from what people...
it is, because, yes, everyone I've talked to is constantly saying the Robot Chicken room must be the greatest writer's room ever. And I'm like, it's people sitting around a table typing. That's it. It's not even hey, is this a good idea? No, it's just complete silence.
It's so true. It's so the opposite of what people think it is. I always joke that I remember one time we were all quietly writing and somebody put a box of Girl Scout cookies on the table. And that day there were 12 sketches about Girl Scout cookies. We're just pulling ideas from anywhere we possibly can.
Yeah. And that's always the best part about that room, because it's just desperation.
It is. But I tell you, I've learned a lot in that room, because I've looked across the table at you with my fearful face like I got nothing. I remember on a Tuesday at 3:00 thinking I am bone dry. I've got not another creative idea in me, and it's only Tuesday. I have to get to Friday. And then you dig deep and you find it, or something comes out that you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I had it in me. And I've relied on that in my career, ever since, because I know, even though my mind is telling me you're done, I'm like, no, I don't call it the eye of the tiger. Call it whatever you want. I'll dig deep down there and find it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always, the ones that came out and got in eventually were the ones that I was just like, I'm just going to throw this on the wall. It is I know it's not getting in. It's terrible. It's not funny, but I'm just going to get it out there. And then you send it in and everybody's think this is the greatest thing ever.
Yep. That's the other lesson, where don't judge your own work, because to your point, what you just said, I will work all day on a sketch I think is brilliant.
Yep.
And then with 5 minutes to go, I'm like, oh, I need another one. And then you pull something out, and then you're like, everybody hated the one you spent all day on. And that one you gave 3 minutes to, they're like, this is genius.
Yeah, that was always so disappointing when you're typing, this is the greatest thing that has ever been put down on paper.
It's so true.
When it comes to the voting time and it comes to that sketch and no one even says a word, crickets.
Not a word.
And you're like, how can you not think this is funny? And no one does.
Nope. You know what you have to do in that situation, Mike? You gotta create your own show called Mad. And you gotta take all the sketches that didn't get into Robot Chicken and say, see, these were funny. I put them on Mad.
Yep. I got a picture of Mad somewhere.
Do you? Oh, look there.
There we go.
That was a fun show. We had a lot of fun on that show.
That was a good, fun, funny show.
And Mike was a big part of that. You were one of my writers there. And what I love so much about this show was, I know Mad TV existed, but that was kind of a sibling to SNL. This was the first show that I felt really had a resemblance to the original comic. Yeah. Not the comic, the original magazine. And to add to the joy of that, we had the original people, if not working on the show, then giving their blessing. Sergio Aragones, who has been drawing Mad for years, does all the guys up in the, the lighter side of it. He draws in the panels. He was still drawing for our show. And what I love is I had animators all over the country. I had an in-house staff of 15 animators who email their stuff. We talk about comic book people only using tablets now. And once a month, Sergio would drive down from where he lived up in Northern California in his convertible with his ponytail blowing in the wind with a license plate that said Viva Mad. And he would hand his sketches in or whatever, his drawings in. It was like, wow.
Nice. Did you get to keep any of those?
He autographed a book to me of his drawing. So I have that. And he was a delight. They all were, all the people from the offices in Mad in New York. Tom Richmond is the current Mort Drucker of Mad Magazine. And sadly, Mad Magazine, it kind of exists, but doesn't, they repurpose it now, but they don't have new stuff, which I was sorry to see go. But look, we helped it. I really do think we extended its life for at least probably another decade, because I was shocked when the magazine came out and it would say, as seen on TV. And there were kids who were like, wait, there's a magazine? I'm like, that's what started it all.
Kids these days.
And the great thing about it is the great unifier. Anybody in comedy, from Monty Python to The Simpsons to us at Robot Chicken, everybody cites Mad Magazine as what introduced them to comedy. The Zucker brothers, everybody. So it was such a delight to be on that show and to put our mark on that franchise.
Yeah, that was good times. Good times.
They were. I want them to bring it back. Everything else is being rebooted.
Yes, that would be great.
It would, wouldn't it?
That would be great.
Well, now pass the word on.
Yes, I will. We'll get our audience.
Get your audience.
We have 19 viewers right now, so we'll get all of them to write.
That's what we need. If I can get 19 of you to back my book, I'm halfway there.
Yes, go to the link below.
Exactly.
Now, what's it like? Is the comparison of running a TV show like Mad and doing a Kickstarter? I'm sure it's like so much easier on Kickstarter, but there's still got to be a huge process.
It's apples and oranges, but it's also, I wouldn't say it's easier, because in some ways you're doing everything on your own. And when you're running a show, look, I'll use Mad as an example. I was so happy to do everything I did on that show, and I don't say this out of ego, it was more out of budget, but I was one of the writers. I was the main voiceover guy. I sat with the editor. I was the voice director. I was the casting director. So you learn to do all these things, which was invaluable. Then when you're working with these people, you take that knowledge, and now I'm doing Kickstarter. It is kind of like you're a one-person band. And it's kind of like everything stops there. And it has I guess it's no different than television or movies, where you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You might think you have, just like those Robot Chicken sketches, you might have something you think is fantastic that nobody cares about? You might have something that's like, oh, okay. I have friends who you should check them out. Wandering Planet Toys. They were on Kickstarter. They wanted to do a action figure. They want to create action figures. I was like, that's a fantastic idea. Their first idea out of the gate was Patrick McGoohan from The Prisoner, a very obscure 1960s British series. Yeah. I have to say, I think I would have been like, I don't recommend that one to start with. They asked for like $30,000. They got $275,000.
What?
That's what I mean. You never know. They're the fan base for that show. Yeah, and I guess, how often are people saying, "Oh, let's make an action figure of Patrick McGoohan."
It was a good show.
It was a good show, but that's my point. It's just as risky, and it's just as much of a mystery.
Yeah. Just as much of a mystery.
A mystery, a Host Mortem.
A Host Mortem. Now the book is done right now, is it?
No? The book is done script-wise. But like I said, I have to keep my artist and letterer and colorist employed. Okay. So I'm hoping that I can raise money and raise funds on Kickstarter to keep them going, because I really want to bring this book out into the world. And it will be things that it'll be something that I'm going to be proud of, that I'm going to be signing at Comic-Cons from here till whenever. Again, I do think it's going to be many things. I'm working on a novel about it. I'm working on this game show, but it's all going to start with this graphic novel. So I think it's going to be a special thing to own. And we're not doing an unlimited amount of them. We maybe do like 900 of them, a hardcover. So, if you're interested, now's the time to get them, because that's how that's going to go.
I'm so looking forward to this.
You and I both. Well, that's two of us. Okay.
Good stuff. Let me.
I know. Now, tell me, what are you? Are you? You have this wonderful podcast about comic book school. Are you reading anything you're enjoying? Are you interested in doing now? Haven't you done a comic book, Mike, or do you just?
Yes, I did a comic book for a video game. It's not out yet, or it's actually in beta testing now. It's called Super Champs. It's basically about a school of super powered kids who play tennis and hockey and things like that.
Gotcha.
And it's basically centers on the tennis team.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So I wanted they tapped into me and they were like, "Hey, how about writing a comic for because they had the basics of the game down, just like the tennis, batting back and forth."
Yeah.
And they're like, "We need some character stuff." So
that's amazing.
So they're like, "Hey, let's get this done." So I had a blast writing that. It was so much fun. Just the stupidity that you can get into with all the superpowers and because it's like a Hogwarts.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have like the swimming school where there's sharks with lasers, and you have
amazing
bulls and squids and everything coming after the surfers.
I can't wait till this comes out.
Yeah. So can I? I'm waiting. It was a lot of fun to write, and that took a while.
Yeah. How many pages would you say it was?
That was 22.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, we did it, and the guys that I worked with over at Joyride, they were great. They took all the ideas, and they were like, "Let's do this," and they had some great ideas of their own. We threw all them in. And we had great artists to do it. Oh, it's
beautiful.
I'm waiting to get a hard copy of it now. I know it's either coming out or somewhere. It's somewhere that you have the digital copy.
Put your link down there. Get your thing.
Yeah, once it's out.
But it's interesting how that connectivity works, because I did a couple of comics that were, in this day and age, they want everything linked. So I wrote a comic book or a graphic novel called Web of Spider-Man. What's confusing about it is there was a Web of Spider-Man. This is Web, W-E-B. It's an acronym for Worldwide Engineering Brigade.
Oh boy!
I said to them, wouldn't that be web? And they were like, not everything has to be a joke, Kevin. I was like, okay.
There's silence in the room.
Exactly. So I wrote this. It was like 5 issues, and so they put it together in this lovely graphic novel. But it mirrors the ride at Disneyland, and I imagine Disney World, which was great because it's a nice companion piece. And Harley Keener, which was a kid who showed up in the movies, was created in the movies, this was the first time he ever appeared in the comics. So I was able to introduce him to the editorial world of Marvel. And then after that, I did something called Guardians of the Galaxy. And that was tied into a ride at Disney World. So it's funny how they, the connective tissue runs in all sorts of different directions.
And when they came to you, were they just like, this is based on a ride, so go?
They were both different. Web of Spider-Man, the ride was already launching, but it was like they would come to me, and after you write like the first issue, they're like, it's these 5 people, great. Then they're like, oh, the 4 of those people are out, and you're like, oh, all right, so you got to change that now. You're like, okay, but you got to roll with things in the comic books world. That's something I think has never evolved. It's always a high pressure, under the gun situation. One thing that stood out to me was I told you I'd written a bunch of Spider-Man, Batman, and so Dan Slott was doing at the time Superior Spider-Man, the first run of Superior Spider-Man. Big fan of that. Loved that Doc Ock was Spider-Man and all that. And there was something called Superior Spider-Man Team Up. So they asked me, Chris Yost, who I know is a comic book writer and a movie writer and all that stuff, was leaving the book. And would I want to come on and do that? Absolutely, I did that. So I come on and I poured everything into that issue. In fact, that's one of the comics. I'm proud of all my comics, but all cylinders were firing on that issue. And it came out, and it still had Chris Yost's name on it as the writer. And I was like, oh, come on. And even on Amazon, there's a review that someone's like, come on, this guy worked really hard on it. At least get his name on it. So I reached out to Chris, and I was like, can you believe they put your name on my book? And he goes, I'm going to make it up to you. I know how. So I think he was doing Young Mutants or someone over there. So if one of these pages you look, he put the word Shinick in as a sound effect for like someone's blast. And it's like, Shinick. And I was like, all right, well, I got, he paid it forward. And then when you ask what they say when here's the ride, do that. When I took over the Flash for a time, they literally came to me and said, hey, anything that's ever been worth doing has been done with the Flash. Do you want to try something? And I was like, that's a way to pose it, but yeah. So like everything I do, I try and approach it like a fan. As a reader, what do I want to see? And the great thing about this was when I was growing up, Barry Allen was the Flash. Yep. And then, of course, the next generation loved Wally, and that was all fine. But what I loved about Barry Allen was his costume ring, his ring that he kept his costume in. And so my in was, do we know how he created that ring? And what was the origin of that? So I did a deep dive on Google, and no one had ever done it. So now this story not only involves these great villains and an amazing story that I enjoyed writing, but also it's the now canon of how Barry created his ring. So again, another tip to the comic book school listeners, it's like, no matter what the project I find, and you tell me if you feel the same way, I really have to be invested in it. I have to find what I like about it in order to complete it, because I'm never going to take a job that I'm not excited about. But I will find excitement in the weirdest places, but I have to find excitement for it.
We got a comment from Lord Flogger X.
Okay.
Hello. That's one of my friends too. He's on.
Good.
Hello. So when you're pitching these ideas to DC and stuff,
yes.
Do you give them like a list of ideas, like 2 or 3 paragraphs? This is what I like to do, or is it just like, this is the one I'd like to write?
No, usually, and I've been lucky in that way. They come to me and say, "Hey, do you want to jump on this for a time?" And I am always like, "Yes." And I think the rule across the board for comic book writers is, or DC or Marvel, do what you want within reason, but always put them back the way you found them. So if you kill somebody off in your 4-issue thing, you got to restore them by issue 4. You know what I mean? So you're not going to do something big like that. But, I find that they're amenable to things. There is pushback sometimes, but it's never, very rarely is it story-wise for me. It's, we can't do that because Submariner is in some other planet or, you know, or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay. Or for whatever reason with Web of Spider-Man, they were like, oh, we have to change it. You know, the ride is now these people. But creatively, I've found that they've been very, very giving. And like I said, they weigh in with their notes, but it's not like, you can't do that. They usually have been very open to the ideas that I've had.
Well, now with your Kickstarter, you don't need to take anybody's notes. So it's all just yours.
Like I said, it's all going to land at my feet. So it's what it, you know. If you don't like it, you can come to me. But I know you're going to like it. I know you're going to like it.
Well, I can't wait till this comes out because I not only would I like to get one, but I would like to get a signed one.
Well, Mike, there's a tier for that too.
Wow. Well, that's good. Yeah, click the link below. There's a link to check out Kevin's Kickstarter for Host Mortem.
Right. It's going to be launching in a month.
Launching in a month.
If you sign up now, like I said, you'll get notifications. And like I said, there are early bird specials. If you back within the first, I think, 2 or 3 days, we've got some discounted prices. We've got some things that are only available those first 2 or 3 days. So you don't want to miss out on those things.
You certainly do not. Well, Kev, I am looking forward to this, and I am so happy we got a chance to chit chat.
Me too. Me too. Thanks for having me on, Mike. I love your podcast. I love you. And you know, let's do this again.
We definitely will. All right. I'm gonna throw you in the green room for just a second.
All right.
And, I'll be back.
All right. Bye.
All right, gang. So there we go. We talked to Kevin all about his comic books. So click the link below, check it out, and definitely support him. And for Buddy and Comic Book School, we will see you next Tuesday.